This shirt is almost the same color as my face. Snow White looks tan next to me. Hi everybody, my name is Moo. I'm a college student who is super into reading, and I have come to YouTube to share my love with you. By the time I'm filming this, I have almost run out of books to talk about, I feel. Which is interesting, because again, I read 44 books last year, so why am I pondering, like, what book should I review? I think it's because I only started reading with the intention of making videos, like, a month ago, so it's not like I really wrote anything down, but we'll figure it out. I'm on a good track. I'm reading a lot still. I'm on my 4th book of the year, and it's January 17th, so yeah, I think I'm doing well. I still have a couple books that I've already read to share with you all, but hopefully by next week I'll have finished a book or 2 by then. Granted, one of them will be Warrior Cats. That's kind of what I do. Every other book is a Warrior Cats book, and I won't be sharing those, but I'll have books. I'll continue uploading, and by the time this video goes up, I'll probably have read a lot more, so it doesn't matter either way. The book we're reviewing today is The Wrath in the Dawn by Renee Adia. I hope I said that right. I probably didn't. I am so sorry. Just a fair warning, there will probably be some mispronunciation in this video. I'm going to try my best, but a lot of these names are very different to American names, and I don't know how to pronounce them correctly, so I will try my best, but if I get it wrong, please politely correct me in the comments. I'm more than willing to learn. Without further ado, let's start off with a summary, shall we? Khalid, the 18-year-old Caliph of Khorasan, is a monster. Each night he takes a new wife, only to have her killed by sunrise. Shahrazad is the first volunteer to become Khalid's bride. She vows to stop his reign of terror, for the friends she lost and all those who perished before her. Incredibly, Shahrazad manages to survive her first morning, then the next. Night after night, she mesmerizes the Caliph with her storytelling, at once buying time and digging deeper into the elusive Boy King's past. If Khalid is truly the murderous madman everyone says he is, how does Shahrazad find it so easy to fall for him? And there we have it. As I have in past videos, I'll say the cover first. It's not the strongest ever. Don't get me wrong, the woman on the front is very beautiful, and I have looked at her outfit for so long throughout this whole thing. That's one thing I love to do, is when there's someone like pretty on the cover, I love to look at their outfit because I really like clothes. But if I'm being a little bit honest, this book cover looks a little bit like erotica, and if I previously hadn't read the webtoon beforehand, I probably wouldn't have picked it up. However, the cover is very different from the contents inside, so that's a good thing. Don't get me wrong, if you're into erotica, do what you want in your spare time. Like, it's not up to me, but that is not my style. Definitely not. So this is a young adult book. There is nothing in there except for romance, but the cover just looks a little bit misleading. I will cut to the chase and say this book was okay. It wasn't the best book in the world, but it wasn't the worst book in the world. Luckily, I started liking it more as the book progressed, but while it started out strong, it kind of deflated in the middle, which I'll tell you why in a second. It did go up and left on a very interesting cliffhanger that I want to know more about, and I will probably end up buying the book, even though my New Year's resolution is to buy less books, because on my bookshelf I probably have about 60 books I haven't read, but I will be buying the sequel and I will be reading it. I will say that this book was very cliche, however, I don't necessarily consider that a bad thing. Cliche tropes are cliche for a reason. It's because a lot of people like them, and then the people that like them continue them through their own work. That being said, there were some common tropes I was not super fond of. Throughout the book, there were both interesting depictions of violence that I think are cool for storytelling, and then there was just
I love you.
basically, I'm going to punch my way into showing that I love you. Like, since this is set in a Middle East setting, they do a lot of sword fighting, kind of like how you would see in Aladdin. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not comparing this to Aladdin. I'm just saying those who are unfamiliar with Middle Eastern culture or like Arabian Nights or anything like that, that's something that would maybe help you visualize it a little bit more. There were sword fights in the book and I thought the sword fights were cool. However, I don't like violence as a mean to show that somebody cares for you. Khalid never hit Shahrazad, never hurt her in any way except for emotionally, which I wouldn't say is 100% his fault. However, he did hurt others, which in turn kind of was to be interpreted as, oh, he cares for her so much, which is something that I wish would get, you know, taken out of any sort of romance. Exploring trauma in a romance setting is one thing, but just adding, I'ma punch you to show my love, it's just something that I think would be good for us to retire. Another thing that I am a bit critical of is that Shahrazad fell for the Caliph just a little bit too fast. This is someone who killed her best friend. He married her best friend and then killed her the next morning. And then within a few weeks at the palace, she's suddenly like, well, maybe he's not that bad. I will say, without spoilers, there is a reason why he kills these women every morning. There is a reason, but that's not a great excuse. One quote that I found ironic was found on page 137. Shahrazad met with the Caliph's old tutor and she said this to him. I know my words only carry a certain weight with the world, but I do know enough to realize you cannot control the actions of others. You can only control what you do with yourself afterward. And I won't lie, I find that a bit ironic because that is a true statement. That is a statement that I say quite a lot. Sometimes bad things happen to good people. Sometimes trauma happens. However, you can't use your trauma as an excuse to hurt others. You being hurt does not give you a right to hurt others, and that is something that I really don't like in a lot of books, especially around romance. Authors justify the mistreatment of others because the character that is doing the mistreatment had a traumatic backstory. You can't write off someone's bad actions by having a traumatic backstory. Now, at first, that made me very angry because it's just like, well, a lot of serial killers have trauma. It doesn't mean they should be killing people. And I felt the same way about the Caliph. However, as I read forward, I started to understand the character better and I understood the motives of the Caliph. So that helped. However, I think it was written in a way where since the author knew his backstory and what's going to happen, she didn't take into account what the reader knew. I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know that he had any sort of justified reason for killing those women. So I was just mad that someone was defending his actions. This is human life. It's noted he had about 70 brides before Shahrazad. That's 70 women who are no longer living because of this king. Again, there is a reason and it's told to you in the book, but it's told to you a lot later in the book. So even while he doesn't present himself as the monster that Shahrazad initially thought he was, I still don't really understand how she could have fallen for him in that setting. I think in the end, Shahrazad was a very good addition to Caliph's life, and I think he changed because of it. I I am very against the I can fix him kind of narrative, but I am of the thought that if you are with someone, you could definitely compliment them and make them better just by being with them. It takes effort of the initial person. You can't just like come in and fix them. As I said, the quote from the book was, you can only control yourself, but still, I am of the thought that a romantic relationship with another person is like a suffix. They add on to you. They take your happy, make you happier kind of thing, instead of taking your bad and like putting a bow on it and making it good, you know? So I think that the change for Khaled was good. I just think that he changed a little bit too drastically in the first book. I believe there could have been some great character change in the duology, but it kind of all happened in the span of one book, and that's a little unfortunate in my opinion. It really felt like the author was going for some really good points. Like, another quote is from page 155 where it says this: "Is this kind of disrespect normal?" Shahrazad lifted a shoulder. "It's not normal, but it's not unexpected. It's the curse of being a woman." You know, the author was going down a good track and had good intentions. I just think the execution could be a little better. Unfortunately, while reading through this entire book, I couldn't help but compare it to The Selection. The Selection is one of my favorite trilogies of all time. It's focused around someone who goes to the castle to marry the king and then didn't like him at first and then starts to like him or whatever, and they're two very different stories, but they follow kind of similar concepts, and I couldn't help but compare the two. The Selection is placed in the future in what used to be North America, and this is the Middle East, so obviously the cultures are very different, and I don't want to say, well, I'm comparing this Middle Eastern story to this white romance, whatever. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm just saying that there were just many of the same concepts, both executed in both books, and The Selection on average did it better. My favorite part of this book was the culture, as you could probably guess from how I've spoken on learning about culture in the past few videos. I really like learning new things about a culture that I'm very unfamiliar with. I learned about the term Junam, which is probably one of my favorite terms of endearment I've ever heard. I just like the way it sounds, and according to this book, it means my everything, and I think it's really cute. So I just think that that's a beautiful term of endearment. That was probably my favorite part, learning about the culture, but I also liked learning about the different garments they wore, and there was also a glossary in the back that told me what all of the words were that were italicized, because any single italicized word was more often than not a glossary term that you could look up in the back of the book. So I really liked that part too. The author of this book is not from the Middle East. She's a Korean American. So it was very well researched in my opinion. Obviously, since I don't know the culture super well, I can't really tell you that it was like accurate or anything, but it seems very well researched, and it seems like she did a really good job trying to immerse you in this culture and put a magical twist on it. And I just overall liked that aspect of it. At the end of the day, even though I had a lot of complaints, and I know I had a lot of complaints, I really did enjoy this book. However, there just were a lot of things that I had to talk about, and this video is running a little bit longer than my other one, so obviously I did have a lot to say about this book. Either way though, despite a few of the toxic traits and the cliches and all that, it was an enjoyable read. I read it in I think 2 days, maybe 3, so obviously if I was able to get through it really fast, I really enjoyed it, because if I don't like a book, it takes me so long to read through. So yeah, I would probably give it about a 3.7 It was about a 3.1, 3.2, about 100 pages in, but once I finished it, I felt that I enjoyed it, and I'll definitely be reading the sequel, so it's about a 3.7 for me. On to who I recommend it to. I recommend this book to people who want to explore other cultures, people who are into books about royalty, people who like romance, despite the few, toxic traits. I think that's about it. This is more of a acquired taste book rather than a broad stroke you would like this book like some of my other ones. But that is all I have for today. This video is running longer than I expected it to. I don't know how long it's going to turn out, but as I'm filming it, it's already almost 30 minutes, which has never happened before. Either way, I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to like if you liked it, comment if you have something to say, and if you want to see more from me, subscribe. I would really appreciate it. That'll be all from me. This has been Moo, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye! Well, now I just feel stupid.